Imagine heart is in super coherence. When that heart starts to beat in rhythm and they're sustaining it, all of a sudden that field starts to expand. That energy starts to become very coherent, like dropping a pebble in water after pebble, and it's creating this wave. God, we spend so much of our lives, 70% of the time, according to the research, living in survival, living in stress. And living in stress and living in survival is when your brain and body are out of balance. And when you're in survival, you're always anticipating the worst thing to happen in your life. So most people live by the emotions of fear or anger or hostility or aggression or competition or envy or jealousy. And they don't know how to open their heart because in survival, it's not a time to open your heart. If you're being chased by a predator, it's not a time to learn. It's not a time to sit still. It's not a time to go within. The survival gene is switched on. You have three choices. You run, you hide, or you fight. People then close down their heart because they don't want to be vulnerable. So we teach them. We partner with the Heart Math Institute, and we teach them how to self-regulate. We teach them how to activate the center and how to begin to trade guilt or sadness or pain for gratitude and worthiness and a love for life and a joy for existence. And just like anything else, if you start practicing and you're knocking on the door, once that center begins to open up and your heart begins to change, it's an amazing phenomenon. The heart begins to release a chemical called oxytocin. Mm-hmm. Oxytocin
makes you feel good, doesn't it?
It's the love chemical. Now, we've measured oxytocin in our students. In 4 days, some of them have 200 times the amount of oxytocin.
Whoa.
Now, oxytocin, according to the research, once it's in the circulatory system, rushes right into the amygdala. The amygdala is the survival center in the brain. It's that little almond-shaped part of the brain that's always scanning the environment to determine danger. And so there's 4 different emotions that the amygdala is wired for: aggression and anger, mm-hmm. fear and anxiety, pain and suffering, and joy and love. So the moment oxytocin is released into the circulatory system, it shuts the lights out for anger and aggression. It cools the circuits off for fear and anxiety, and it lowers the volume to pain and suffering. And the only emotion the person can feel is a true love for life. In fact, the research shows that when oxytocin levels are elevated just slightly, it's impossible to hold a grudge. In other words, wow. Why would you want to trade this feeling for anyone or anything? You would say, I feel so great that I won't judge, or I don't want to lose this feeling. So when oxytocin is released, it signals a chemical called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide signals a chemical called endothelial-derived relaxing factor. Now, it's just a big word that just means it causes the arteries to in expand, your heart, right? In your brain, just to open up. So you're getting more energy and more blood flow, and your heart is literally feeling full. And with that comes an energy or an emotion. So you feel so grateful, you feel so blessed, you feel so whole that you can't want anything. You feel like you have everything. You feel blessed. Now, I call that the natural state of being. So most people don't want to take the time to get beyond their fear.
Why not?
Because some people, many people, they get caught in these loops. They have those events in their life that cause the strong emotions. Let's say it's fear, or let's say it's failure.
Something goes wrong.
Yeah, so if you feel like a failure,
you're going to be one.
You're going to think you are a failure.
Sure.
Right? So if you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings become the means of thinking, then you're thinking in the past. So people get caught in these loops. They think certain thoughts. Those thoughts make certain chemicals. They feel like a failure. The moment the brain checks with the body and says, yeah, you're feeling pretty much like a failure, you'll generate more thoughts equal to how you're feeling. So the thinking and feeling and thinking creates a state of being. So then when people get caught in these loops, what happens is they get happy being unhappy, because the hardest part about change, don't expect anything to change. And if you say, it's that person that did it to me. I'm going to say, great, but that's being a victim to your life. So then it takes practice. And it's trial and error. And there are days where you have just a connection and it flows and it's smooth and it's free. And other days you're getting hit from every direction because the universe is saying, you want wealth, you want freedom, you want health. Well, let me show you how much you have to be initiated to maintain that state independent of those conditions. And when you do, now no person, no thing will move you from it. Now it's permanent. And people are now beginning to understand that. And so the person who heals themselves from a disease in our work, they say to me, the disease exists in the old personality. It doesn't exist with me anymore. And I'm ready for the next challenge. Come on, I'm ready. I want to be challenged. I was more alive when I was challenged.
Yes.
So now you're no longer contracting from your life. You're engaging in life. And I think that's a healthy way to live.
Oh yeah, this is your example of your personality creates your personal reality. Your personality change and it creates your personality. I think that's beautifully said.
Well, your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So the present personality who's watching this show has created the present personal reality called their life. So it makes sense if you want to create a new personal reality, a new life, you got to change your personality, which means you got to start thinking about what you've been thinking about. Start modifying your behaviors and noticing how you feel. And if you do that enough times, sooner or later, you're going to disengage from that old personality. But the next step is, what thoughts do I want to fire and wire in my brain? What behaviors do I want to demonstrate in one day, in one lifetime? And the act of closing your eyes and rehearsing your behaviors. Mental rehearsal actually installs neurological circuits in your brain. You're priming your brain to begin to become that person. And then if you say, can I teach my body emotionally what my future is going to feel like before it happens? You're not going to wait for your health to feel wholeness and gratitude. You're not going to wait for your new relationship to feel love. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect. You're actually going to cause an effect, which means the moment you start feeling gratitude and wholeness, your healing begins. The moment you start falling in love with life and yourself, you create an equal. So now you're causing an effect. So then people who do this consistently, they literally create a new personality. And of course, they create a new personal reality. Their life changes. They have all these different opportunities that begin to show up. And it takes time in the beginning because breaking the habit of some aspect of yourself requires a constant state of awareness.
I was going to ask you, how much time? Because can this happen in an instant, as you've seen in your workshops? Or can it happen over repetitive meditation and going through that experience over and over in your mind?
Gosh, Lisa, I'm in such an interesting place because I never thought that I would see what I'm witnessing in my lifetime in the way people are engaging in this work. In fact, it's like the 4-minute mile. The 4-minute mile is just a barrier of consciousness. And now I'm seeing people, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, with stage 4 cancer or Parkinson's disease or lupus or tumors or whatever. They stand in front of an audience and they say, I'm completely cancer-free.